Body Punch podcast. My name is Naz. We got some really fun news that came out, which headlines say that Brock Lesnar is interested in coming back to the UFC. That's what a lot of headlines are making this to be. But in fact, the case is that Brock Lesnar's contract has ended with the UFC. Brock Lesnar, being the shrewd businessman he is, takes these short-term contracts with the WWE, which it seems like it ends every summer. And we always get everybody asking the same question, which is Brock Lesnar going to make a return to the UFC? Brock Lesnar, being one of the most famous athletes in the world, because of his illustrious WWE and UFC career, his ability to talk on the mic, all that stuff that he learned from the WWE, and translating that to mixed martial arts. A lot of reports are talking like Brock Lesnar is going to come back to the UFC. But there are other options when it comes to MMA organizations. Bellator has talked about their interest in being in the Brock Lesnar business. Scott Coker has talked about one of his dream matchups, which could be Brock Lesnar versus Fedor Emelianenko, who some might argue is the greatest of all time. That fight never took place because Brock Lesnar was always in the UFC and Fedor was kind of jumping between organizations. So we never got to see that. We never got to see what would happen if Brock went against Fedor Emelianenko with his amazing striking ability and underrated ground game. And how would Brock Lesnar's wrestling, his powerful wrestling, do against Fedor? Jon Jones came out recently. In fact, right after news broke by TMZ about Brock Lesnar's contract, Jon Jones came out and tweeted that he would like to fight Brock Lesnar. And when you think about it, you think to yourself that a man in his 40s is going to fight the greatest of all time in this era. There's no question about it. In this era, Jon Jones, in my opinion, is the greatest. You're telling me that a 40-year-old guy is going to fight Jon Jones? That doesn't make sense when I say it like that. But when I think about it, and let's do a little MMA forecasting here. We know that Stipe and Francis are going to fight each other. Dana White has come out and said that there's no way that he's going to deny Francis the opportunity. Stipe reluctantly is, and I believe is going to take the fight. Francis wants to fight. He believes he's a changed fighter. He believes he's not the same fighter as he once was when he first faced Stipe. And he knows that he has a real chance in winning the belt. But Jon Jones recently announced that he's moving to heavyweight. And in my previous podcast, I had some questions on who he would fight. There are a lot of heavyweights that he could go up against, but are they the right decision for him in terms of making the most money and having a higher chance of fighting for the belt? What I mean by that is, if Jon Jones fights someone like a Curtis Blades or Derek Lewis or any of those guys, anybody that doesn't have a fight at the moment, well, there's a real chance that he could lose that fight. Jon Jones, coming into his older age, is more prone to getting hit. And even though Jon Jones is not scared, we don't know what would happen when Jon Jones takes a hit from a heavyweight. They're about the same size as light heavyweights, but they're able to pack on the extra pounds. And Jon Jones has been hit cleanly in his past couple fights. So then why does Brock Lesnar seem like a good fight for him? Well, if you think about it, like I said, Brock Lesnar's in his 40s. We see from his last fight, which was in July 9th, 2016, which was ruled a no contest, but it still gives us a good idea on what Brock Lesnar is going to look like. It's the only idea that we have on what Brock Lesnar is going to look like if he comes back. Is when he fought against Mark Hunt, his boxing wasn't crisp. His striking wasn't Jon Jones level. His wrestling was still really good because he was training and wrestling his whole life almost. He was a great wrestler in his youth. And this, I believe, gives confidence to Jon Jones, seeing that. Now, why would Brock Lesnar want to come back and fight a monster like Jon Bones Jones? Brock Lesnar has come out and said that the WWE is a lot easier for him. He said that he doesn't really like training that much. MMA is one of the most brutal sports when it comes to training. You got to have your cardio levels all right. You got to deplete yourself in terms of weight. You got to lose all that weight. You got to get the muscle on in some instances. It takes a real well-rounded athlete to be in mixed martial arts. And Brock Lesnar has come out and said that it's difficult for him. And this is difficult for many fighters, especially in their later years. DC is a good example. We just saw him fight. He's come out and said that it wasn't his best training camp. He knew he faltered in some ways. And then in the fight itself, some instances, he blamed his age for his reaction time. His reaction time was just not the same as what it once was. And DC just says, hey, I'm older. What can I do? But Brock Lesnar has a real chance to make history. We all know the competitor that Brock Lesnar is. We all know the businessman that he is. And now the businessman would tell himself that this is not the right move. Mixed martial arts, I can get hurt. I can't make as much money as the WWE. It doesn't seem like a good business decision. But when the competitor in Brock Lesnar speaks up, he says to himself, hey, I got a chance to make history here. I got a chance to do something that nobody else has done. Now, can Brock Lesnar do it? He would be a severe underdog. I think that's pretty obvious. Anybody, I believe, in the UFC at the heavyweight division going against Jon Jones, I think Jon Jones is just going to be a favorite in all accounts. He's just overall so good. But does Brock Lesnar have a chance? Everybody has a chance. Everybody has a chance to knock you out. Totally possible. And the other thing that not many people are talking about is, can Jon Jones take a punch at heavyweight? Where you're not going to find out until he steps in that octagon as a heavyweight for the first time and his chin gets tested. Maybe that's what Brock Lesnar is going to bank for. Now, to round off this podcast, do I think that Brock Lesnar is going to come back to the UFC? Chances are slim. I don't think he's going to take the chance to come back. I think he's just going to do what he's done for years with us MMA fans and tease that he's going to come back just so he can make some more money in the WWE. But you know what? It's turning out to be a great strategy for monetary reasons. But in terms of the fans, you could see that people are getting a little bit fed up. He just keeps on talking about this every single year. Is Brock Lesnar going to come back? Is Brock Lesnar going to come back? Is this guy going to be like 60 and still believe that he can be in the UFC? Now, I don't take anything away from him. What Brock Lesnar did was incredible. What he did earlier in his career was amazing. Especially coming with just that wrestling background that I don't think he trained that for many years until signing with the UFC. So this is the way I see it. Brock Lesnar has a very low chance of coming back to the UFC. And if he does come back, I think Jon Jones is the fight for him. I agree with other media members that are talking about Jon Jones versus Brock Lesnar. That totally makes sense. You got two of the stars of the UFC. Brock Lesnar is going to think in his head the whole time that he's going to be able to make history. Jon Jones will take the fight because he knows it's a great stepping stone for him to get a win while Stipe and Francis are fighting over a big name that will make him a lot of money. And just the back and forth, John Jones gets a lot of backlash for his trash talk, but he's still able to talk. He's still able to get on the mic. He is willing to do that kind of stuff, and Brock Lesnar is always willing to do that. So that'll be fun. It will get everybody riled up. It will get all of the regular people interested, non-MMA hardcores, the casuals. That's how I see it playing out. And lastly, when it comes to the Bellator thing, the Fedor fight would be great to see, especially both of them being in their advanced age. It will kind of level the playing field. But for you and me, who I assume you guys that are listening to this podcast are hardcore fans, we know who Fedor is. But do the people that watch SportsCenter on a regular basis know who he is? Do people that are tuning in to basketball and just are fair weather fans, do they know who Fedor Emelianenko is? I don't think so. Maybe before, when Fedor was on his run and beating everybody up in spectacular fashion and doing all those crazy fights with giants, maybe then you could do a fight like that. You would really have to educate the fans on who Fedor is. And my reasoning behind that is because when you got Brock Lesnar coming in, he brings a lot of casual fans. He brings a lot of WWE fans that don't really know much about the sport. And they have to be told about the greatness when it comes to Fedor. So that's the issue I see when it comes to Fedor and Brock in Bellator. And it's a lot lower in the totem pole when it comes to all of Brock Lesnar's options. I see it going, number 3 is the Fedor fight, number 2 is John Jones fight, and number 1 thing that I believe is going to happen is what happens every year. It seems like Brock Lesnar is just going to sign a short-term contract with the WWE and go back into his world. And we're just going to think, what if? So that's what I wanted to talk about today. Wanted to talk about the Brock Lesnar news. Great short little podcast. Thank you guys for listening. Thank you guys for tuning in. I really appreciate it. And if you guys are watching this on any of the platforms, Apple, Spotify, or even YouTube, please give it a like. Please give it a 5-star. Anything helps. I really appreciate it. Thank you guys for listening. Thank you for taking the time. My name is Naz. This has been the Body Punch Podcast. Bye.